Hello friends, I am Professor Dabiru Sridhar Patnaik, the Director of the Center for Postgraduate Legal Studies and Executive Director of the Center for South Asian Legal Studies at the Jindal Global Law School of the OP Jindal Global University. What I am going to do today is, I will be taking this unit on trade-related intellectual property rights and human rights on behalf of the content writer N. Rajkumar, an Associate Professor of Law at the Savita University. Before we begin, it is important that we understand or look at the learning outcomes of this particular unit, which we wish to achieve at the end of the completion of this unit. The learning outcomes are, the students will have to be able to understand the issue of intellectual property rights and its connection with human rights, and the various ways in which international human rights covenants justify the grant of intellectual property. The students should also be in a position to appreciate the provisions, like most importantly, compulsory licenses, which are put in place to keep checks and balances in the intellectual property regime. By the end of this particular lecture, the student should also be able to appreciate the need for checks and balances in the system of IPRs to protect human rights. So let us now understand briefly what this unit talks about. A mere mention of the terms like intellectual property rights and human rights does not ring any bell in the back of one's mind, conveying or signifying any direct or major connection between the two fields of law, and they appear to be quite distinct and apart from one another. However, once an individual moves beyond the superficial layer of the two fields of law, one would most importantly realize that there exists a unique connection or relationship between the two fields of law, that is, intellectual property rights and human rights law. The term intellectual property rights refers to any right to intangible property, namely trademarks, designs, patents, or any other similar intangible property under any law, that is, the protection accorded to any intellectual property, which generally includes the creations of the mind, such as inventions, literary and artistic works, designs and symbols, names and images used in commerce, etc. WTO introduced intellectual property rules into the multilateral trading system for the first time through its agreement on trade-related aspects of intellectual property rights, which was negotiated during the 1986 to 1994 Uruguay round. Now, TRIPS gives prominence to the protection of intellectual property and the areas in relation to intellectual property that are covered or ought to be covered under the TRIPS agreement, such as copyright and related rights, which includes the rights of performers, producers of sound recordings, and broadcasting organizations. Further, trademarks including service marks, geographical indications including appellations of origin, industrial designs, patents including the protection of new varieties of plants, the layout designs of integrated circuits, and undisclosed information including trade secrets and test data. The agreement also comes with a basic obligation on each of the member country to accord the treatment in regard to protection of intellectual property as provided for under the agreement to the persons of all other member countries. And now The term human right arises from the concept that all human beings are born free and equal in both dignity and rights, which means they are endowed with reason and concise and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. The concept of human rights, despite beginning to gain importance from the beginning of the 20th century, came into limelight and started to get noticed more with the adoption of the most important Universal Declaration of Human Rights, 1948. Despite the fact that the two branches of law are over a century old, their paths never crossed one another during their initial course of development, as a plain reading of the definition of the two terms that they deal with completely different aspects of law. That is, while one deals with the protection of the rights accrued to certain intangible assets, and the other one, like the human rights, deals with human life and the concept of treating all human life as equal one. So it's important to know the relationship between intellectual property rights and human rights, that is often referred to as the one that has come to light only in the recent times, and until then they were treated, or they were always treated separately, and never any discussion linking the two fields came into the forefront, but for certain remote references such as in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, wherein it lays down that everyone has the right to the protection of the moral and material interests resulting from any scientific, literary or artistic production of which he or she is the author. The conflict of interest in the protection of intellectual property rights and human rights came up to further limelight only at a later point of time, especially after certain activities adopted at the international level, such as the implementation of the TRIPS agreement by the World Trade Organization, which had resulted in a situation wherein the two branches of law are interestingly at an intersection, wherein it is debated that in certain cases the grant or the protection of one right is made at the violation of the other right. The manner in which intellectual property rights and human rights have come to cross one another's paths in the last few decades has been portrayed in the words of L.R. Helfer as follows, and I quote: "Human rights and intellectual property rights that were once strangers are now becoming increasingly intimate bedfellows. For decades, the two subjects developed in virtual isolation from each other. But in the last few years, international standard setting activities have begun to map previously uncharted intersections between intellectual property laws on the one hand and human rights law on the other hand." Unquote. Despite the fact that there exists a range of discussions or debates on numerous issues whereby one may find a conflict between human rights and accord of intellectual property rights, especially post the TRIPS agreement, this unit, while primarily focusing on introducing the readers with the issues revolving around pharmaceutical patenting, it also discusses the interaction and the debates on the conflict of intellectual property rights and its protection being violative of human rights in certain instances have been concentrated on several major conflict points and some of the other major conflict points wherein the protection of intellectual property rights, especially in a period post the implementation of the TRIPS agreement, and the protection of human rights are at crossroads, such as pharmaceutical patenting that I just referred to, and the changes brought about in it, like the protection of traditional knowledge, increasing costs of food and food articles, etc. Now, the United Nations Subcommission on the Promotion and Protection of Human Rights has also recognized this issue and has even gone ahead and criticized the curtailment of human rights with the implementation of the TRIPS agreement, and has pointed out the same in one of its resolutions. So, as per the United Nations, since the implementation of the TRIPS agreement does not adequately reflect the fundamental nature and indivisibility of all human rights, including the right of everyone to enjoy the benefits of scientific progress and its applications, like the right to health, the right to food, and the right to self-determination, there are apparent conflicts between the intellectual property rights regime embodied in the TRIPS agreement on the one hand and international human rights law on the other hand. The major and the often discussed debate pertaining to a point wherein the provisions of the TRIPS agreement and its commitment to protect the intellectual property and the protection of human rights pertains to life-saving issues, namely the access to essential medicines, especially in less developed countries. Recognition of human right to the highest attainable standard of health is present in the constitution of numerous countries. The adoption of the TRIPS agreement and the subsequent implementation of it, advocating a strong protection regime for patents and clinical trial data, as well as heightened measures restricting parallel imports while mandating the seizure of in-transit generic drugs, has ultimately led to the demise of the generic drug manufacturing industry, which was instrumental in keeping the prices of medicines at a low point and thereby making it accessible to a large number of people, and on the other hand, that resulted in a situation of spiraling costs of medicines. This factor of the increase in the cost of essential medicines, especially in developing countries, and thereby keeping these essential medicines away from the reach of the economically weaker section, has opened the Pandora's box, raising issues that certain aspects of TRIPS and the protection of IPR are violative of human rights, and led to a major debate. And the debate concerning access to essential medicines implicates both the right to health and the right to life. Article 3 of the UDHR explicitly lays down that everyone has the right to life, liberty, and security of person. Similarly, Article 25(1) of the UDHR further recognizes that every person has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself or herself and of his or her family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care and necessary social services. In a manner that echoes this provision, the preamble to the World Health Organization and its constitution declares the enjoyment of the highest attainable standard of health is one of the fundamental rights of every human being without distinction of race, religion, political belief, economic or social condition. Now, let us analyze the situation that is prevalent in India and Africa as one of the best examples to illustrate how TRIPS has a direct impact on access to cheaper medicines. And also in the Indian scenario, wherein the passing of the Patent Amendment Act 2005 so as to meet with the deadline of January 2005 to comply with requirements of the World Trade Organization as set out in the TRIPS, and thereby directly affecting the percentage of population having access to medicines. This particular new amendment has caused repercussions on access to medicines to many who cannot afford them, and in fact, India has finally moved from price-driven mentality to a proprietary technology-driven mentality. The Amendment Act, deviating from the previous procedure set in place, extended product patents to products from all sectors, including pharmaceuticals. As a matter of fact, until the 2005 amendment, which came into effect as a direct consequence of the TRIPS agreement, the Indian Patent Act only provided for the grant of process patenting for pharmaceutical products, and no product patent was granted, thereby opening up an avenue of reverse engineering the pharmaceutical products and thereby lowering the prices of all such medicines. However, due to the fact that India became a signatory to the Trade Related Intellectual Property Rights Agreement, India was required to provide for product patenting by 2005 as laid down under the TRIPS agreement. The 2005 amendment also set the term of patent protection at a uniform period of 20 years. The amendment further closed the option of reverse engineering, which largely contributed to the growth of the Indian pharmaceutical industry, and thus it was no longer possible to produce the patented product by adopting a different process. Now, this thereby led to the spiraling costs of life-saving drugs, not only in the country, but also it dealt a huge blow to a number of developing nations and underdeveloped nations, where a huge chunk of pharmaceutical products were being exported from India. Access to medicines is therefore a vital feature and the right of everyone to the highest attainable standard of health, as we may all know. Antiretroviral therapies or ARVs can significantly reduce morbidity and mortality in people living with HIV. Yet, at the beginning of the year 2008, only about 3 million people living with HIV and in need of treatment were receiving antiretroviral therapy, which meant that over 69% of those who needed the life-saving ARV treatment were not receiving it. The situation is significantly worse for over 2 million children living under the age of 15 and living with HIV, unfortunately, and an important example here. Studies have pointed out that while over 7,80,000 children approximately were living with AIDS need ARVs, only about 15% are receiving the life-saving treatment. In sub-Saharan Africa, out of the total percentage of children in need of ARVs, those who are receiving them are as low as 6%. The cost of ARV therapy, especially those medicines that under patent, has remained a major barrier for providing treatment at an affordable cost to all those who are in need of it. Thus, the availability of generic medicines would not only be an efficient way to reduce the cost of life-saving treatment, but further it would be an important aspect of ensuring the long-term sustainability of a country's HIV treatment programs. In Africa, for example, wherein the economy in several nations, especially those with HIV percentage, they are already reeling under some kind of a pressure. Thus, in order to provide access to life-saving treatments at an affordable cost and also with minimum impact to a nation's economy, it appears that it is imperative that generic medicines is made available to the public at large or to the public at large, so as to ensure that they have a right to live a healthy life and thereby protecting their human rights as well, which is very important. However, post the implementation of the TRIPS agreement, the generic medicine manufacturing industry in India has been severely affected, and that has also led to a major adverse impact in African nations as well, wherein a major chunk of generic medicines, the TRIPS agreement has set in place certain checks and balances in order to curb the misuse of the protection accorded for patents, and especially in the case of pharmaceutical patenting for the purpose of protecting the patient's right of access to medicines and thereby protect the human rights of such persons. And here, compulsory licensing is a method to place a check and to ensure that there is no any kind of an abuse of the patent right, while also ensuring that the intent and purpose of patent law is not defeated, which is important. A compulsory license is an involuntary contract between a willing buyer and an unwilling seller, imposed and enforced by the state. For those of you who should know about this, compulsory licensing is the system in place under which a country may grant license to an applicant subject to certain conditions to produce or use any patented product or sell such product in the open market, even in case where the holder of the patent for such product does not consent for the same. The TRIPS agreement has provided for states to grant compulsory licensing so as to provide a leeway to the member states to smoothen the creases or the wrinkles or the differences created by potential conflict between competition policy and intellectual property laws. Here, Articles 30 and 31 of the TRIPS agreement primarily deal with authority of the states for permitting non-voluntary use of patents, and member nations may adopt measures that are necessary to protect public health and nutrition and to promote the public interest in sectors of vital importance to their socio-economic as well as technological development. Further, TRIPS handles compulsory licenses as an exception to the agreement's minimum requirement that all member states afford a patentee a right of exclusivity during the complete patent term. The TRIPS agreement also lays out a set of circumstances provided which any member state is allowed to issue a compulsory license. And here the compulsory licenses that are allowed must fall into either of the two categories, namely where there is an overriding public interest or where the patent rights are being used in an anti-competitive manner, and we need to know this. And if we consider the Indian scenario, here Section 92 of the Patents Act 1970, which encompasses the principles contained in Article 31B of the TRIPS agreement. They give sweeping powers to the Government of India in public interest to grant a compulsory license. And this lays down that compulsory license may be granted to an invention in cases wherein the central government satisfies that there exists or that there are special circumstances that exist for such a grant. What are they? Namely, in circumstances of national emergency or in circumstances of extreme urgency or in those cases of public non-commercial use. Similar use of compulsory licensing is also witnessed in several Asian nations, especially in cases concerning life-saving ARVs used for the purpose of treating HIV, AIDS, and in the case of Malaysia, for example, compulsory license was specifically issued for the purpose of importation of a generic version of patented ARV for treating problems like HIV, AIDS. Therefore, towards the conclusion, we can say that the Accord of Protection for Intellectual Property Rights, especially post the trade-related intellectual property rights agreement, has often cited as one that in certain circumstances, leads to violation of human rights. But the most debated issue here is with respect to pharmaceutical patenting post the TRIPS era, wherein it has become compulsory or mandatory for nations to provide product patents to medicines, which is generally referred to as violation of human rights by several scholars as well as even by several activists, as the same results in rising costs of medicines and thereby at the same time limiting the access to life-saving drugs, especially for the poor, and we just cannot overlook this. While those advocating in favor of the protection accorded to IPR post TRIPS, they cite the existence of compulsory licensing as a measure that has been set in place to check the misuse of patents and red tapeism has also limited the use of compulsory licensing. However, while the debate on whether the protection of intellectual property rights, especially after the TRIPS agreement in certain cases violates human rights, is an ongoing debate. It is an ongoing one. There is also a new debate that you all should know that is now gaining popularity in the recent times on the question whether the accord of the protection of intellectual property rights in itself is the protection of human right. And here, as a matter of fact, even the Universal Declaration of Human Rights 1948 appears to be in support of this particular view. And for instance, the same is evident from Article 27 Clause 2 of the UDHR. Similarly, Article 15(1)(c) of the ICESCR recognizes the right of everyone to benefit from the moral and material interests resulting from any scientific, literary or artistic production of which he or she is the author. These provisions act as an illustration to the fact that fundamental human rights covenants do recognize intellectual property right as being a human right, and they have been repeatedly used to fuel numerous debates in order to argue, which is important to understand and learn, and substantiate the question on whether it has implications that all human intellectual property rights are human rights. And those in favor of the existing norm of protecting intellectual property rights often justify the need for patent protection for medicines, as that is the only means that ensure adequate return for investments made, and thereby the same would encourage and promote further research and development, which I believe is instrumental for development of medicines. Thus, what is important and significant here? The need of the hour is to decide the point wherein, on one hand, a rightful exploitation of intellectual property right crosses the line and becomes a violation of human right, so as to have adequate checks and balances in place in order to ensure that both the protection of intellectual property rights and human rights go hand in hand. Now, my dear friends, with this, we have come to an end of this particular unit. I hope you all will focus more on the points discussed, and I thank you very much for your patience and listening. Good luck.